what does it mean when two people of different ethnicities meet in terms of mutual recognition?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts on this. One of the things that I'm aware of when I think about mutuality in the room, which is how I would say it in my form of therapeutic work, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a complete sense of equality, but it does mean that there's a sense of it's possible for the space to be co-created in such a way that both people can let their relative roles of client and therapist go into the background, and what can become more figural or more foreground is the personhood of both client and therapist, in as much as each is able to do that from moment to moment. So that's what comes to mind as a general description of mutuality. And then in terms of across ethnicities, I'm not sure that the difference in an ethnicity necessarily reduces the mutuality if the therapist brings an attitude of, I make the ground available for who you are to be here, and I will respond from the truth of my experience of who I am to who you are. So that's where my thinking goes when you ask that question.
Okay. I mean, I was sort of coming from a place of awareness that, this series, this is a dominantly white middle-class field. And of course, our series develop within that, sort of given context almost. So, so I think it takes a bit of an effort to not get stuck, not kind of automatically stay within that implicit, unnamed context.
Yeah. So what you're saying, if I've understood, what you're drawing me into paying attention to is something about not about the therapist, or even it's interesting because it's an interesting place to talk from as a Black therapist, because for me it's from the other side. It's often about how do I find a way to invite the client to pay attention to the difference without imposing that as an agenda from my side. But of course, it is there in the room. It is in the experiencing field. It is in the experiential field. And when I talk about the phenomenological, that's the field I'm talking about. I'm talking about that moment by moment experience, but also the experience. Say that bit again. But also the experiencing of who each of us is.